You know, people will go a long way with you, and this has got nothing to do with Star Wars even or Star Trek, so much as with movies. There is, I'm sure you've all heard the term, but when you think about it, it is really astonishing. It's the willful suspension of disbelief. And you will, when you're willing to do that, you can get away with a lot. In other words, you're sitting in a movie theater in the summer, in the afternoon, in California, and it's 100 degrees and burning daylight outside, but you're sitting in a room, and you're looking at Dracula, and you're in a castle, and it's the 1400s, and he comes out of there, and you jump. You jump because you're there. You're in the movie. You have willingly suspended your disbelief, and you don't live in the theater anymore. Now you live inside the frame, which is why the greatest crime that a writer can commit is to pull you out of the movie. When you say somebody pulled me out of the movie, they did something that took me out of Transylvania 1400 and brought me back to Sherman Oaks 2018. I don't want to be here for this next hour. I want to be there. And if you're going to do something that's going to rip me out of there and put me back in Sherman Oaks with a thing of popcorn in my lap, you've taken me out of the movie. And now it's going to take another 10 minutes to get me back into the movie. I was with you. I was with you. And now you've taken me out of it. Some movies never get you there, ever. Just don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I'm trying to remember an example of something like that where I just remember kept just out loud saying, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. What was it? What was it? I don't remember. Something I saw recently that I was looking forward to, and I just kept, no, I don't believe you. I don't believe it. Nope. Mm-mm. Nope. So that is a magical quality that we have, and once again to what I do after hours here when I'm not educating people. I'm getting this this pitch more refined, and what I'm basically arguing is that it can't. What we need to do in order to get the message to people is it can't just be entertaining. It has to be entertainment, and there's a difference. People will say, well, what can we do to make the conservative message more entertaining? That's what they're basically asking. You know, Ghostbusters, the all-female Ghostbusters, that's all you need to know. There's an all-female Ocean's 11 coming out, and that's going to absolutely tank too. And they're going to say, well, it tanked because of the release date or because of this. No, they're going to tank because it's 11 women in a caper movie. And nobody believes it. Nobody believes it. I don't believe it. No. I know you want me to believe it because, and this is the point I missed. I'm glad I came back to this because the whole purpose of why I was talking about this in the first place. The reason that the left makes movies like all-female Ghostbusters and all-female Ocean's 11 is because women must be capable of doing the exact same things that men can do as well as men can do. And the reason for that is very simple, actually, if you get down to it. If you have to believe as a progressive, you have to believe that if you start early enough on somebody, you can make them believe what you want them to believe. Because ultimately, progressivism is about the idea that something will be true if you believe in it hard enough. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the reality of the situation is. If you believe in it hard enough and you work at it hard enough and you indoctrinate people early enough, you will find a way to change human nature. And this is their core belief. And that's why they have to drum it into our heads all the time. All the time. The reason Scarlett Johansson, with no superpowers, can beat up a guy who's 4 times her body weight, who's a professional fighter, is because, well, she had all this training. And that training allows her to beat up a guy who's 4 times her size. Well, he had training too. But we want women to be able to fight as well as men. Well, as a general rule, they don't. As a general rule, they don't. Which is why we have female boxing and female basketball. Because men are faster and stronger than women are. And that's unacceptable to them. And it's not just about the feminism. It's about the entire theory of progressivism. Right? If it turns out that no matter how much you put STEM in front of women's noses, and no matter how much you glorify women warriors, and no matter how much you basically denigrate engineering and toxic masculinity, no matter how much of that you do, you are not going to get as many women warriors or engineers as you're going to get male engineers or warriors. It's not because women can't handle it. It's because, as a general rule, they are not inclined to it as an aptitude. It doesn't say they can't do it. I want to be crystal clear on this. There's some extraordinarily good engineers and fighter pilots and all the rest that are women. But as a general rule, they don't incline towards it. And that means that parts of human nature are unchangeable. That means that there are fundamental wiring in the human body that exists in a certain way, and it cannot be removed by education or by indoctrination or by shame or anything else. It's built into the human condition. And this is why they're progressives. They believe that socialism will work because they believe that if you tell everybody that they must share, then they will share. They believe that if you educate people and indoctrinate them and start them early enough, they will no longer care about their self-interest as much as they care about the interest of the collective. And when it doesn't happen, it's because they haven't tried hard enough, or they didn't do it right. They didn't do it right. Never done it right. Communism not been done once right. Let's try it again. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because it's inhuman. It's anti-human. And no matter how much you want it to work, it doesn't work. And the fact that you're ready to kill people to make it work is a sign of your diseased ego and intellect. It's a sign of the diseased mental state that you live in, where you have to have something that you believe to be true be true. And the fact that it's true or not has no relevance on it as far as you're concerned. If it turns out that men are stronger than women and faster than women and make better warriors than women, if that's true, then what other irreducible human qualities are there? And if it turns out that there are irreducible human inclinations towards crime, murder, rape, arson, all of that, then it doesn't matter whether we throw AR-15s into a volcano or not, does it? Because murder's still going to be murder, and there's still going to be murderers. And everything they believe in is wrong. And it is wrong. It's all tied together, you see. Their gun control argument about throwing a certain type of rifle with a certain type of features into a volcano and making it disappear will stop murder is the same as the belief that in the real world, Scarlett Johansson can beat the daylights out of a 200-pound mixed martial arts guy. They're the same fantasy. It's the same magical thinking. They're exactly the same thing. I believe this, so it must be true, and I believe that, so it must be true. And if you're going to show me that this isn't true, then that means that's probably not true either, and my entire worldview falls apart. And the most brutal example of this, and I say it's brutal because it is not a position I want to particularly take. I don't like the way this sounds, but here it is. There is virtually every high school in America, virtually every one of them, has at least one and probably several 15 or 16-year-old boys who are faster than the fastest woman that ever lived. They run the 100-meter dash faster than FloJo. They beat the women's world record in high school on a daily basis. So this is one of those things like the way the rafts are moving from Cuba to Florida, not the other way around. This is one of those things that simply ends the argument. It ends the argument, which is why you can't talk about these things. You know? It ends the argument. The reason they have women's categories in the Olympics is that, with a few exceptions, if they didn't, there would be no women in the Olympics. There wouldn't be any. So, Simon says, women you shoot with. My wife is a much better shot than I am. And that's one of those cases where it's completely independent of your gender. Absolutely. and in things like that. And being a fighter pilot is not something that requires physical strength. There's nothing about being a fighter pilot that's dependent on your biology, male or female, in terms of your physical state. It's been shown that women have a much better perception of things like emotional states. They have a much better perception of people's inner feelings, what they're thinking about, and so on. My wife doesn't forget anything, and she doesn't miss anything, ever. Nothing gets past her. Everything gets past me. But men have a far better sense, as a general rule. The part of their brain that in women is dedicated to things like interpersonal relationships and that kind of nuance, in a male goes into things like 3D visualization. I can look at a map. I can look at any map anywhere. I can put myself anywhere on that map, and I can imagine what the map would look like from any position, upside down, left down, up, it doesn't matter. I just deal with it, wrap it around in my head in 3 dimensions. Simple. Because that's what we're good at. That's what we do. And Simon says, fighter pilot is aggressiveness. That's exactly right. That's all it is. No offense, Foghorn. But it's true. There are many different kinds of combat. And the kind of person who makes an excellent fighter pilot would make the worst submarine commander in the world. And I ought to know because I've done both of these sims. I played a lot of sims, both of them. I played sub-sims, and I've played a lot of flight sims. And aggression is survival in air-to-air combat. But in submarine combat, it's patience and stealth and guile that wins. And the fighter pilot personality always goes zipping towards the enemy just as fast as you can, torpedoes blazing, and that's how you get killed in a submarine. But in a fighter airplane, you have to be aggressive. And the reason you have to be aggressive in a fighter airplane, and I'm only telling you this because Foghorn doesn't have a show and I do, is because when you are in the presence of the enemy, you're in one of 2 states. You're either engaged offensive or you're engaged defensive. That's it. When you're in the presence of enemy aircraft, you're one or the other. It's not like, well, we're not fighting and we're not. No, you're either trying to kill somebody or somebody's trying to kill you. And up until very recently anyway, we'll just say for the sake of the argument, throughout the entire history of aerial combat, the difference between being on offense and being on defense is where are you in relation to your enemy. As a general rule now, if you're behind the guy, you're on offense and he's on defense. If he's behind you, you're on defense, he's on offense. That's how it works. All of air-to-air combat, all of the maneuvering, all of it is fundamentally based upon the idea of getting from being in front of the guy to being behind the guy. That's basically what it is. How can I get from being in front of this guy to being behind this guy? That's air-to-air combat. And that's why aggressiveness is the quality that is most prized, because the animal-like instinct to try and outturn the guy is overwhelming. And I know this from playing Star Citizen, because I'm a pretty good pilot in Star Citizen. I would say that of any 100 pilots in Star Citizen, I would say I'm probably in the top, I'm certainly in the top 20. And I might be number 90 or 91, maybe. I'm certainly 80 and above. I'm pretty sure I'm 85. I might be 90 or 91, but I'm no higher than that. And the people that are the top of the pyramid are people who are so, mostly because they're so young, they're so maneuverable that I can't hit them. But I know from experience that when I run into one of these guys, and in something like in Star Citizen and Arena Combat, it's just, you guys just keep shooting each other. When you die, you respawn, and when he dies, he respawns. So it's just back and forth like jousting, head to head with the same guy again and again and again. And I will, within 2 or 3 of these brief matches, know whether I'm better than this guy or he's better than me. And I repeatedly run into people who are far better than me. And I always turn into them. Always. I will always turn into a fight with them. And I know I'm going to lose this fight. Except the part of me that is in charge doesn't believe it. The part of me that's in charge says, not this time. Not this time. This time you're going to outturn this guy. You're going to get inside this guy and you're going to blow him to pieces. I'm going to blow that son of a bitch out of the water. And I don't care what happens to me. And I keep getting into fights that I can't win. And it's virtually impossible for me to break this habit. Virtually impossible. Which is why, again, movie writing is so lazy. Because in film, fighter pilots are portrayed as a bunch of devil may care. I'm going to buzz. Permission to buzz the tower. Decline. Denied. The pattern is full. I'm going to do it anyway. F you. No. It's the precise opposite of that. It's the exact opposite of that. It's the opposite of that. It's not lack of discipline. It's disciplining your aggressive emotions to the point where you could stay alive long enough to actually shoot some guys down and do some good for your country. I will constantly, repeatedly, endlessly try to outturn people that are better pilots than me because of my aggressiveness, and I haven't had the training to temper that and make it clear to me, to the reptile, that this is not the way to win this fight. I know it's not the way to win the fight. I see it every single time I go in there. I see it again and again and again. And my wife will testify. She'll be in there working on her photography, doing something useful, and out of the back room, God damn it, cursing and son of a bitch. Are you okay? I'm fine. Some 12-year-old has just blown me out of the water, and now I have to fight them again. And I have to fight them again. I don't want to even. I have to go and fight them again. And I will keep fighting them until I kill them at least once, and then I can at least retire and retreat in some sense of something. But it's very, 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 very powerful. Very, 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 very powerful for some people. Some people don't have that. They don't. It's just not like that. But for me it is. It's personal. And I take it personally. And a couple times in the game, since we're just goofing off here, in the Star Citizen game, in the wider game out in the world, sometimes, because in the head-to-head combat, I don't get this feeling. I meet people who either I am better than or they're better than me. Sometimes, a good match, I might win 9 and somebody will win 4, something like that. Or sometimes I'll win 1 and they'll win 12. But out in the so-called universe, every now and then I'll be minding my own business, doing something. I'm just minding my own business. And somebody is going to just suddenly start attacking me, and I know this kid's probably 12 or 14 because adults don't just do this. And I'll be flying along, and all of a sudden this guy will be flying next to me, and he'll be doing all these rolls and all these loops trying to get my attention. I just keep on going, and then the guy opens fire on me. This has happened to me probably 4 or 5 times now. He thinks I'm just a civilian, flying around. Hey, come on. And so finally he'll actually fire on me. And then within 3 seconds, I'll turn inside this guy and turn him into a fireball. And I've just pretended to destroy a 12-year-old that I've never met in my life. And I cannot tell you how good that feels. I can't tell you the satisfaction of that, of having somebody mess with your hair, basically, and just keep poking you on the shoulder, and then just being able to turn around and punch somebody in the face and knock them out unconscious. It's the best feeling in the world. I just love it so. This is the thing about this game and about games in general, and why so many millennials are playing these games, because you get to do things like this in a world where you're not being beaten up for it. I was minding my own business. I'm very trusting. I'm far too trusting. My wife will tell you about this. I'm far too trusting and naive about things. And so in this game, when you're playing against other humans, there are areas where they've got an armistice zone where somehow they've magically disarmed all the weapons, because otherwise people just be blowing you up when you appeared. It's probably wise. But some of these places are outside of this armistice zone. So I'll land and I'll go to this little habitat someplace, and I'm going to go in there, and weapons are hot, and I'll see somebody else there, and I'll think, I should probably draw my gun. And then I think, but if I draw my gun, it's going to look like I'm looking for a fight. So I won't. So I don't. So I just walk into the building, and then some kid shoots me dead. And I get that kid's name. I get his name. I write it down. And, God, I know this is so silly and so inside, but I just got to tell you, I was doing one of these things. I was minding my own business. I was simply walking in, and I saw this guy, and he just fired on me and killed me, and it just pissed me off so much. I went back, and I just immediately got into the meanest ship I have, and I went looking for this guy, and I started everywhere. I went everywhere there was to go, and I looked for him for an hour. And there are so many different possible locations that you can be in. And first of all, he could have left the game. I didn't know if he'd left the game or not. But I kept looking. And I kept looking everywhere. And I kept thinking, all right, so he killed me out of the blue, which means now he's a criminal. So he's going to go to the security post and he's going to try and erase his criminal record. That's what everybody would do. I'll wait for him there. Can't find him, can't find him. Flying around looking for him, spent an hour. I'm about to go home. I said, one more trip. I'll go back to Korea one more time. And I go back to the space station and I see his ship there on the pad. This is the guy who's blown me up, not from the ground. I'm walking into a building. He's floating there in his spaceship and he blows me up from the air, just vaporizes me. And I see his little ship on the landing pad there. I have to preface this. Almost immediately after he did this to me, I come roaring back there, and I find him in this place, which is filled with asteroids, like an asteroid belt. And he's landed there, and he's safe inside this weapons-free zone. And I'm hanging around outside the weapons-free zone. He comes out and fires up his ship, and he's about to take off, and then he doesn't take off. I said, damn it, he's found me. He's seen my name on the radar. He knows I'm here. So he's not going to take off. So I decided to sit and wait it out, and finally he makes a run for it. And I tried to catch him, but just inside this weapons-free zone, he jumped out of the way and was gone. So I'd encountered him, and I was floating right in front of him, and I was basically saying, come on, man, come on. It's just so childish. I understand it's childish. I don't care. So he got away. And then 45 minutes goes by, 50 minutes goes by, and then I find his ship sitting out there on the landing pad all alone, which means I'm in my ship with my big guns in the air, and he has to walk across this wide open space. So I basically parked the ship around a corner kind of thing, and I turned the power off, and I just waited. And I saw him come walking out. And just as he was getting into his ship, I put a couple of rounds onto the pad, and he goes running because he looks up. I can see him look up and see me. He knows who I am because we encountered each other before. And he goes running into this ship. And I just sit there, and I wait for him to get into the ship. And as he closes the door, I unload on this thing, and it just explodes in a fireball. And I can't remember feeling that good since... that kind of good. It was the most satisfying thing in the world, honestly. Somebody had murdered me in cold blood, and then I got to track that person down, and I got to let them know that it was me who was going to murder them in cold blood, and it felt wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I tried that in the real world, and I didn't have nearly as much success with it, you know. So anyway, yeah, an hour, 2 hours of Star Wars and Star geekiness. I know a lot of people probably just left. I don't care. As Vipercheck has pointed out there, if you want to be part of the fun, aurora.republic.org is, that's not an email address, Foghorn. It's aurorarepublic.space, however. It does teach people respect. Thank you, Puddle Pirate. It teaches people respect. That was a nasty thing to do, and he paid the price for it. Make sure I get my own website right here. By the way, while I've been working on all these videos and all the rest of this stuff and designing uniforms and texturing everything, I'm doing every single thing that has to be done, everything. Foghorn and known miscreant Matt Lloyd have been keeping the organization alive, for which I'm very grateful. And I mean that sincerely. Hey, there you go. So, yeah, if you want to be part of the fun, we've mentioned it before. I'm going to put it in the chat thing, and I'll put it in the YouTube thing as well. Here you go. Is that right? Huh. What did I do? Did I move myself out of my own? I think I did. Hang on. No? Where's my Stratosphere? There it is. Vipercheck got the name right. Here you go, and here's the website. Boom. And the great thing about this is we've set up our own government and our own little society. And if you don't want to play the game, you actually don't have to. You can be the Secretary of Transportation, or we don't have a Secretary of Transportation, thank God. That was one of the departments we figured we didn't need. But there's plenty of fun things there, and it's all written in characters, really fun. And if you want to be a part, you can email aurora.republic.org@gmail.com. All right. Where is known miscreant Matt Lloyd, by the way? I have not seen his face in here. So anyway, if you are a fully grown adult and you want to, start acting like a teenager like the rest of us, well, we're certainly happy to have you. All right, now's the time where I have to figure out how to turn off all 3 of these buttons, and I have to do it in the right order. So the first thing I'm going to do is say goodbye to our YouTube fans, which is where most people see the show. This program is made possible by the paying members of BillWhittle.com, to whom I am eternally grateful. And I never stop saying it. So to those of you out there who are watching and who are members, thank you very much for joining us. It's been fun. And I'll see if I can't boil these 2 hours down into a solid 6 or 7 minutes and make some sense out of it next day or two. But that'll do it for this episode of the Stratosphere Lounge, whatever episode it may be. And until then, until next time, we will see you later on YouTube.